Hello, and my name is Pete Rushmer, and I'm your host today of A Half Dozen Things podcast. A Half Dozen Things is a podcast for business owners just like you. Whether you're an underdog hungry for success, or you're already smashing it but want to continue to level up, we are here each week for you to get insight and learning from the very best in the business. No fluff, no BS, and no self-proclaimed gurus talking about how easy business or life is.
Mark, how we doing, mate? All right.
I'm not too bad, thanks. How are you?
Good, man. Yeah, good, thanks, mate. It's a pleasure to have Mark Cowan on our podcast today. I met Mark recently. I was introduced by Colin Nuttage, actually, I think, from the Influential Management Group. He's got his own podcast as well, Interesting Health and Safety podcast. Mark, just for the sake of the listeners, are you able to just give yourself a bit of an introduction and sort of who you are? Because you online I see a lot of posting around mixers and that kind of thing, but what's sort of your background and why is it so important to you around road safety and that kind of thing, mate? Because I can tell you're really passionate about it.
Well, I've got I wear two hats. One I'm part owner of a company called MinTrain, which is an industry training provider. And then the other hat I wear is the British Aggregates Association, where I'm Director of Transport, Logistics and Concrete. One of the big, as you say, passions is around mixers as well, and it's more around the safety of it. The lack of training that we've obviously missed out over the years within the industry, and just we have a big problem not just in this country but worldwide with mixer rollovers, and it's something that the industry hasn't really approached or addressed or even tackled, and still to this point, we've started doing mixer rollover awareness workshops around the country, and it features in there, that the mixer rollovers have been happening since ready mix became an established industry way back in the 60s, and still to this day, we aren't tackling the issue. And it needs to be tackled, especially with the influx of new drivers, and everybody being so busy as well. So it's a little bit of my background.
Yeah, okay, mate. And how many mixers are there in the UK? Do you know? Have you got sort of an idea of that?
Question. I mean, I was talking to the sales director from McPhee, Lindsay, and he reckons there's about, just on the figures that they've got, around about 3,000, but we reckon there's more than that, probably knocking on between 3,000 and 5,000. I would say closer to the 5,000, but so it's not a huge area, but it's very niche, but it does come with a lot of problems.
Yeah, the reason I asked that actually is because I was actually trying to approximate the other day. I was chatting to Derek. Who's a trainer that Mark.
All right.
Just for the benefits of the listeners, Mark and I have been passionately talking about introducing a new training scheme that we've been talking about, and we'll come on to it a bit later. But I was chatting to Derek, who's a potential trainer for it, and we did a bit of a number crunch on how big we thought the market was, and I said, I bet there's about. I actually said it isn't on record, so no one will ever be able to say otherwise. But I said, I bet there's about 3,000 mixers in the UK, and he said, do you reckon? And I said, yeah, but you never know. It might be like 5,000, and then you've just banged both their numbers out. So I hope Derek's listening.
Well,
exactly right. Considering I don't know the first thing. I don't know the first thing about mixers anyway. But no, it's all good, mate. So we're going to talk about sort of 6 key areas today, and I've listed them down here so that we can just sort of explore those with you. But the first one's about getting safety right, and one of the reasons that I think we've connected over the past little while, and we're collaborating on both the mixer awareness training and the tipper awareness training as well, tipper sure as well. And then we're looking at the BAA too. We're both passionate about making sure road safety's right. What is it that has sort of made you so passionate about it, and what's involved in making sure that operators are getting their safety right as well?
Well, I think it all started from being in the industry a long time, and always driven mixers. And I remember way back, quite a while ago, I was sitting on a CPC course with my brother, who runs a fleet of mixers up in the northeast, and we sat there, and after about 10 minutes we were bored, and it was about load security, but not anything that was applicable to us. It was about cargo straps and pallets, and so
you can't put a ratchet strap on a mixer.
I mean, we just looked at each other, and we had another 6 hours and 50 minutes of this to go through. So I come out with there, and I said, I'm going to write a CPC course. I never had any experience of it before, and so what I did was I took the training that we give to our drivers through my brother's company anyway. My brother's called Tony, through his company, and we put that together as a driver CPC course. Wasn't very well received at first because the industry had what they called back then was the EPIC card, which is now don't that many names, Site Safety Awareness, which covers tippers, mixers, and tankers, but it wasn't specific to, it was more of a generic health and safety course. So what, I wanted to just fill a gap that needed filling in my eyes, and especially with the amount of, as I said, mixer related incidents that's been over the years. So, that was the reason why I wanted to create it anyway. So
that's funny, I sat on the CPC course and realised it was absolute shit, and that was one of the reasons that I wrote my first CPC course.
All right.
I sat on the CPC course, and I sat there thinking they were talking about driver professionalism, and then they were talking about like compliance and all the things like all the sticks that we beat drivers with, and I was like, hang on, you're telling on the drivers on the one hand they've got to be professional, and then on the other hand you're treating them like children. So the first course I ever wrote was around like driver professionalism and sort of like grown-up behaviours and understanding how we operate in the world and what's the expectations and all that sort of stuff. And we still do that course now. And actually, interestingly, Logistics UK have got a similar course called Your Customer Matters, which is alleged to be quite revolutionary. But I claim the fame, and I think I was probably one of the first to have written a course like that. So
I think for me, drivers don't want to be sitting on a CPC course anyway. It's hard enough to sit in a 7-hour course that you're not interested in. So one of the things I wanted to do was to make it interesting, and make it relevant to what we did on a daily basis. There was nothing out there that did that. There still isn't today, which I still find a little bit strange. People have said they're gonna replicate it. Good luck to them and let them crack on. And what I say, but for me, it's not about people who say you make a fortune on CPC. You don't make any money whatsoever. It's a long-term investment, and I'll probably be 83 by the time I ever see any return on it. But it's not for me. It was just about getting that information out there. And again, making it relevant and a little bit more enjoyable than the shit we're having to sit through on a yearly basis. Let's say. So.
Yeah, that's spot on, mate. Okay, cool. So actually, the second area, it moves on quite nicely. We were talking about sort of being passionate about safety. The next one we're talking about getting the right training. So I think we're probably both on the same page that there's quite a raft of shit training out there in the industry, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll second that. Yeah.
What sort of training do you do at MinTrain? What sort of stuff's that, and how do you make sure that it's relevant?
I mean, what we do is this. We have different areas, and we've got there's 4 of us, and we all specialise in different areas. So my area that I don't want to call myself a specialist, but the area that I look after is around the transport side, predominantly mixers, tippers. One of the big focuses throughout the quarrying industry, or the minerals extractive industry is competence, but there's never ever been a way to measure competence, especially for drivers. There is for machines, plant machinery. There is in the quarries. The quarry regulations is very strict on competence, and it's mentioned throughout. But when it comes to the ready mix side of it, we would tend to get left alone. So, the thing that we wanted to do, I wanted to do, again, moving back on from training, was to develop the training, which was then used to get the information to the drivers, but to then create a competence assessment, which we did back in January last year. So it's a year and a half old now. So that was one of the big things we created. We've got it accredited by an awarding body. It's accredited by clocks. We've got another accreditation process just going through at the minute, which hopefully, touch wood, will be announcing in the next few weeks, which will then make it the only type. Well, it is at the minute. It's the only type of competence assessment there is out there for drivers at the minute. We don't just look at the driver, the driving aspect of it. It's a full assessment from the driver picking the keys up to doing his mixer specific or tipper specific pre-use check, the loading, how the driver with the load on, especially a mixer, site discharge, washing out, product knowledge. It's a very, very in-depth competence assessment, which was why we spent a lot of money getting it accredited by the awarding body and obviously clocks as well. So and hopefully that this next one will obviously just take it up the next level as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think having competence assessments really, really vital. And interestingly, we work quite well with a few of our clients because there's always like the two elements to any driving role, isn't there? There's sort of the competence around actually being able to move and operate safely, the AHDT itself, which is relatively generic, and as a business we've got driver assessors who are able to do that, and they get in the cab with the driver and they can do a daily check around the vehicle. But sometimes about the body specific knowledge, actually there's a little bit of specialism there as well that's required, but from a generic point of view, we can do all of that and we can go out on the road and we can have an assessment on braking and forward planning and steady acceleration and use of cruise control and mirrors and maneuvers and all that sort of stuff. However, it's really interesting to actually go, do you know what, actually in this industry we've got all these different types of operation, and you need to have someone that knows the product they're carrying. They need to understand how it behaves in certain situations, how to drive with it, etc. And that's the sort of thing you're focusing on, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Pete. But I mean, if you look at every other type of machinery that's used in our industry, it's all got to come with a competence card. So it's always been stipulated that if you've got a heavy goods license, you can just jump in a mixer, the next day, as long as you've got a license and 32-ton mixer, with a drum spinning, with 7.5, 8 meters of concrete on. Changes the dynamics of the vehicle straight away. So, it's totally different. I mean, one of the, I was talking to somebody who was doing an investigation on a rollover, and, one of the things that didn't strike them as strange is that the driver only had 3 hours of training, and that was from, who trained them. And that's the way we are as an industry. I'm not saying every company's like that, but, predominantly we've never had any industry standard recognized training. We've never had any industry standard competence assessment. So there was a gap in the market, not just to fill it, but to want to be able to do the right thing. So coming back to the MinTrain side of it, we offer a competence assessment in plant machine. We're working with the AMPI Awards, the awarding body, to look at different accreditation routes of different other types of assessments, other different training modules. So we don't just focus on the transport side of it. We have Roy Bush, who was the health and safety quarries health and safety inspector for 24 years. So Roy really knows his onions. Mike Phillips, who it was ran the Institute of Quarry for 10 years. Mike knows a hell of a lot and knows the industry inside out. And so together we've got a really strong skill set. And then we brought David Lucky on board. David's background is in volumetric mixers as well, but David's a marketing expert as well. So he wears a lot of hats, David. Like he is quite good. I hope you can cut that bit out, like when he's listening. So, but
we'll make sure we just cut that.
But we're trying to build a team that was full of industry experts. I mean, one of the things that we have just done is geotechnical. So we went out and got a real geotechnical expert to write our course. We'll not deliver it because it's not our speciality. So we'll get the geotechnical expert to do it. So it was to make sure that what we offered was the best it could possibly be, and that's what we're trying to build at MinTrain.
Yeah, spot on. Okay, so that sort of leads me on. I'm actually going to skip a question to then come back. So I'm going to talk to you about. I'd said we were going to talk about the BAA, but we'll come back to the BAA in a bit. Yeah. What are the common mistakes that you see of mixer operators? Obviously, I guess a key one is here's the keys, driver, and off you go. And not having a thorough sort of investigation. Is there sort of is there anything else really that's sort of a key thing? Because mixer rollovers, the statistics are fairly phenomenal, aren't they?
Quite big, and you know, people don't realise how often they occur. I mean, if you just, I mean, I know you follow us on LinkedIn and stuff like that, but you know, we went to the concrete show 2 weeks ago, and you know, the figures then were around about 6 rollovers in the UK in the past 10 weeks to get into the concrete show. And then when we got there was, you know, I found out there was another 3, 4. So there was 10 within 10 weeks, you know, and it's a lot of it is down to inexperience. You know, we're still on.
Are they always avoidable, Mark? Are they always avoidable, if that makes sense? As in, are they always down to human error?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on what the, you know, a mixer will not roll over without a driver in it. You know, it'll not blow over in the bin. So, you know, I remember the Institute of Road Transport Engineers did a study or an update of a rollover guidance document, I think last year or 2020, and they used some of the industry major national companies, you know, and they identified in there, I think it's mentioned around about 9 or 10 times, that, you know, industry specific dedicated specialist training is required to stop rollovers, you know, and to this day we're still not doing it. What we have done is we've always relied on a one course fits all, and it's just a health and safety course. You know, it doesn't do what it should be doing, which is, again, you know, back to why we created that one. But one of the biggest factors in rollovers is speeding. You know, 3 biggest factors are speeding, inexperience, and then complacency. But there's a lot more to it, which is, you know, when we start putting everything together for the mixer rollover workshops, you then got to look at, you know, trirems. You know, a lot of trirems are now starting to turn over, different axle configurations. Drum speed is a huge issue. I mean, only yesterday, travelling back from Derby, you know, there was a mixer on the motorway on the M1, you know, and his drum was probably going faster than the truck was itself, you know, which is wrong. But we've always been told as an industry, or when we're, you know, historically, that we always had to have the drum turning and have it turning very fast, you know, and we don't. You know, the mixer manufacturers themselves recommend 2 revolutions a minute at the highest, but we still are, you know, wanting drivers to reach 4 or 5 revolutions a minute, you know. So there's a lot of things we can do to stop rollovers, but, you know, we just, for one reason or another, we just don't want to do it. And I don't know why. You've got to look at the average cost of a rollover's around about 200 grand as well. And then there's no mixers available. You know, you're looking at the back end of next year or 2024 before you can get a new one. So if you lose one, you know, you know, the costs for me just don't add up. But, you know, what do I know?
Sounds absolutely balmy. And I think the thing is around having sort of generic health and safety training. You know, Jesus, I've got a level 6 diploma in health and safety. Like, I've properly studied health and safety. I wouldn't know the first thing about concrete or its behaviour or how many revolutions a minute it should be turning up. No idea at all, because that's specialist knowledge that you need to be trained specifically for.
It is.
You know?
It is. Well, I mean, one of the other things, yeah, I think we'll feel as an industry as well is, you know, we have people making decisions that have never done the job. You know, these are just, you know, my thoughts on it. But, you know, there's a lot of people within the industry who've never done it, you know, some of them don't even have a heavy goods license, and they're the ones making these safety critical decisions of what they think should be doing, you know, and that doesn't work. You know, it's been proven over the years. I always mention 2016, I think it was 2016, Cemex had a tipper rollover campaign, which really good, and it brought out a lot of good guidance. But it was built on I think the industry had suffered, or Cemex had suffered 50 rollovers within a 3-year period, but they all happened on site. Now 80% or 85% of mixer rollovers happen loaded on the way to site, so they happen on the road. So it adds a road safety issue, which again, you know, we aren't really tackling. We're just sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say pushing it under the carpet, but we have a knee-jerk reaction to a rollover. There'll be a toolbox talk go out, a safety alert, and then we'll just forget about it. some companies are better than others, you know. Some will just, you know, not do anything. And at times, you know, I think at the minute we're just waiting for another fatality. We've already had a couple, you know. There's another one just happened in the States last week or the week before. And I think, you know, we're just waiting of another one to see what's going to happen. The thing that I thought might have kicked this on was the likes of the big projects going on now, the likes of HS2, and you know, where they want to leave legacies on health and safety and stuff like that. And we're talking to HS2, you know, we're talking to a lot of companies as well, but it's actually getting them to make that change as well, which, you know, smoke and mirrors, I always say, is what the industry's been built, or the mixer side of things has been built on. So hopefully tide's turning, like, so, you know, we'll just have to wait and see.
I think it's probably not just the mixer industry that's smoke and mirrors. I think there's a lot of that around the thing. The old, it always makes me chuckle, the old adage of blame, shame, retrain. You know, someone does something wrong, blame them, shame them, tell everyone that they've done something wrong, and then make sure you retrain everybody as punishment for it.
I mean, you asked, are they all avoidable? You know, is it down to driver error? Well, if the driver hasn't been trained on what to do, he's never going to understand what he should be doing. You know, our industry's built on inherited knowledge. You know, it's been passed down from generation to generation. You know, 30 odd years. I've never been trained in driving a mixer. I've never been trained in concrete. Yet if there's a problem with the concrete when I get to site, it's my fault. You know, I just something I don't understand, and it's just something that's been accepted over the years. So, you know, hopefully we're trying to make a difference and get away from that culture. But as I say, it's easier said than done.
Definitely, and I think let's move on to sort of talking about the smoke and mirrors actually a little bit, because that made it interesting as well, talking about that with certainly the big projects around and their commitment to safety, because there's always been like different standards in the industry around fours and things like that as well. And I was having a conversation the other day, and I sort of bring fours up because I know you're a big advocate for the DVSA and recognition scheme, and I just wanted to sort of touch on that because I've had Phil Breen on the podcast as well, and he was absolutely brilliant. And one of the things is with fours, I think the principle was sort of really, really good. But what it led to, and it's similar to what we're talking about with the smoke and mirrors type thing, is it kind of brings in this like lazy safety management, which is the people in the management roles, potentially without the driving licenses, without the real understanding, of going, oh, actually, if these operators have got this badge, at least that mitigates our risk because they've met this standard. And I think one of the challenges is actually the standard it's probably not what it was, but certainly the DVSA have kind of gone, no, we're not having that. You know, they've kind of created their own standard, haven't they? Which I think is sort of quite exciting. What's your thoughts around the different types of standards and stuff with regards to operators and fours and earned recognition and that kind of thing?
I mean, you know, there's another one there now, is I think Mission Zero. There's another one. Yeah. So, you know, as I said earlier, our competence assessment is accredited by Clocks, and you know, which was another industry first. But the standards that are out there now, you know, I think we relied on fours in the early days when it first came out. You know, my brother was one of the first to get the fours accreditation for tarmac on behalf of tarmac in the northeast. You know, we put a lot of work into it, and especially me, and that's where, you know, the training element sort of followed on from that. And I think looking back then, there was, you know, it was just everything that we had in place anyway. It was just then formalized, you know, in some sort of order within what the drivers had access to in the cabs. So I think, you know, the fours side of it for me, it hasn't developed where it needed to go. You know, there was a great opportunity there. I think people have just took it as, you know, fours is the standard for everyone. You know, I always say it's a little bit strange because you've got to have the set risk assessments, not just the set ones, but, you know, and it doesn't matter what you do. Companies are then, you know, there's fours, companies that provide fours accreditation will help you to gain the fours accreditation, but they're offering to get you through within 30 days and stuff like that. And it's just generic risk assessments. I mean, I even had one company, you know, he was doing some work for a company in London, and he emailed us to ask if I could get him some Mixer specific risk assessments, because the ones that they were using was shit. Well, you know, I didn't even know what the role was, or, you know, what the problems were, or what the risks were. So how can we give them a generic risk assessment around mixers? You know, and I'm not really hung up on risk assessments and policies, because I think we just use them as a tick box exercise. You know, well, the one I always like to mention is we've got one throughout the industry, and it tells you that every concrete mixer has to wash off. You know, make sure that your vehicle's prepared to re-enter the public highway, so there's no loose concrete comes off the back of the chute, and, you know, the potential to cause an accident. But in the same breath, they're giving those risk assessments out, but then banning drivers from site because they'll not stick to the no washout policy. You know, there's double standards. Again, back to smoke and mirrors.
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor a Half Dozen Things podcast. At Flagship Partners, we take road safety really seriously, and we're your road safety partnership. We help transport companies with compliance and training across their businesses, including first aid, driver CPC, and other transport management services. So if you're FORS accredited or you want to improve your operator compliance risk score, give Flagship Partners a call today.
Outwardly, we like to portray that, you know, the industry's, you know, the top of the pile for safety, but inwardly a lot of it, you know, we do get wrong. I'll probably get slated for saying this, but, you know, past all of that, you know, a bit long in the tooth now. Hopefully I'll be retiring soon anyway, so.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, we like a bit of being outspoken, mate. What's your thoughts on the earned recognition scheme? It looks to be a good scheme, doesn't it? I think we're going for the approval, and I know we both work quite closely with Lisa at Logico now, and she's doing quite a bit of the earned recognition stuff. And I think what I like about that is it's a bit like you're saying about the competence assessment. So what's built into that standard is that you've actually got to demonstrate the standard. You've got to prove it. There's got to be evidence. There's evidence based around it, and I think that when we start to introduce this level of really proving competence and proving what we say we're doing, I think a lot of the time the problem is around we pay shit lip service, don't we? And then it's not really it's just what you're talking about there about washing out and not washing out. We pay stuff lip service and then don't follow it through. But the earned recognition seems a good scheme, doesn't it?
I think it sets the bar, doesn't it? It's the highest standard. It's DVSA that you know make the rules for the transport industry and the ones that govern the rules. So I think if we can you know get to that standard, I'm not saying we have to apply for earned recognition straight away, but for me, companies should be saying, right, you know, we're going to reach the standard. I honestly think within 3 to 5 years, earned recognition, everybody will have to go for it. I don't think there'll be a choice. So I think if we start working towards it now, you know, there's a possibility that once it does come in as a mandatory requirement, you know, we'll be ready for it, and especially in our industry, as I say, we've relied heavily on FORS to set the standard, but then the standard, you know, has started to slip, and I think companies are starting to realise that. You know, I don't want to put a nail in the coffin of FORS, but I think, you know, there's other schemes coming along that realise that, you know, there is similar to what we did, there's a gap in the market there, so potentially they could step in and offer a different solution. But I think if anybody is serious about what they're doing, you know, earned recognition isn't really hard to achieve if you've got everything in place to start with. I think the thing that I like about it as well is, you know, the training that drivers have to do as well, and any management staff has to be aligned to the transport operations they're in. So everything we've done and created all aligns with DVSA earned recognition. You know, we are through the BEA, which I'll come on to later, is you know, doing a little bit of work through that as well and seeing how we can make the industry better. So, you know, it is a good scheme. Whether companies will buy into it straight away, I don't know, because they get a little bit frightened from thinking, you know, we're going to let the DVSA in and they'll be able to say everything we're doing, and if we're not doing it right, it'll open up a whole can of worms. And it's not about that, because it's not the DVSA that are auditing you. You know, so it's the likes of Lisa from Logico, who, to be honest, is probably worse than DVSA.
I wouldn't disagree with that actually. I reckon Lisa's pretty scary, to be fair, or could be if she wants to be anyway.
The other day, and I'm pretty scared.
And Lisa, if you're listening, I mean that in the nicest possible way. Let's talk a bit about the BAA, because that's sort of what sort of ties, when people are listening, that's what ties sort of you, me and Lisa in really. So tell me a bit about the BAA and sort of what it does, and also, you know, we'll start to talk about the Transport Committee as well. Tell me a bit more about it.
Well, the BAA is the British Aggregates Association, a trade association for the obviously the aggregates industry. Started many years ago. I think over the last few years it started to dwindle down a little bit, and there was an opportunity there, and I was invited to get involved through Mike Phillips. And you know, we had a look at, you know, what we could do and what we'd introduce to maybe sort of reinvigorate it and, you know, bring it back to where it should be. Predominantly as an industry, we've always been governed by one trade association, which is the MPA, the Mineral Products Association. So, you know, we didn't want to go out. It wasn't a rival, because we cannot compete with them. You know, we don't have the resources. We're a very, very small team. But what we do have is a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of passion. You know, we give a lot of time up, probably too much time, if I'm being honest. But, you know, it's something that we want to do, and we're all really passionate about. Introducing new sides to it, which was the health and safety, which Roy looks after. We've got planning, which Peter, the secretary, looks after. But I wanted to introduce a transport sector. I've good relationships with the likes of National Highways, with Driving for Better Business, DVSA, and we wanted to build on that and, you know, get those involved with the Transport Committee. We wanted to start putting webinars on with Lincoln House Chambers, the likes of Richard Dawson and some really well-respected barristers, just to give our members a little bit more. So it was just to see what member benefits we could introduce. And, you know, some will work, some will not, but it's trial and error at the minute. The one thing I will say is we've been in less than a year, and I think the progress we've made has been unbelievable. You know, we're getting some really, really good feedback. You know, so we've just got to keep plugging away and doing what we're doing.
Definitely. I think I went to the first Transport Committee meeting, sort of had my first bit of insight a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's brilliant. You know, it's fascinating to, as a bit of an outsider to the industry, to look in and sort of see what's happening. I think it's a really good opportunity for you know, as a committee and as a association, as a trade association, to be able to get in and add value to its members. I think that's really what we're gunning for, and there's some really good, like you say, some really great partnerships with Driving for Better Business and those kinds of things as well. So yeah, looking forward to that. And obviously Transport Committee is going to be helping the members sort of stay compliant and operating at high standards as well. So it's nice to have been accepted for vice chair for the role as well. So I'm looking forward to getting involved in that, actually.
I haven't announced that yet. So I mean, just back the Transport Committee, yeah. I mean, you know, we had the first meeting a few weeks back, but one of the things we always wanted to do is, you know, get everything in place first before we had a Transport Committee, because what we would have ended up doing is just, you know, forming a Transport Committee and then plodding on to see what we wanted to do. So it was all about building these strategic partnerships. You know, I went through the presentation with everyone at the Transport Committee, but it was about making these, having these strategic partnerships, and then looking at where we could add value, not just to the members, but to the wider industry. And the things that we've been asked, you know, has been really, really good, been really positive. My thoughts on the Transport Committee was always, you know, there's better people than me out there within the transport industry. There's industry experts who, you know, walk all over me, and, you know, that's what we want to do. We want to fill the room with these industry experts and the members as well, and bring real value. So the likes of yourself, Lisa, we had who else? James Dawes, you know, as part of the Transport Committee. you know,
which I'm coming on the podcast soon. To be fair, you've got in before, but he's coming on the podcast too. Those who are listening early and it's not out, James is he's the MD. I forgot what the company's called. Is it Highways? No, People Panels.
Yeah, Doors Highways.
Yeah. They do people panels, don't they? People panels, which is the amazing sort of sideboards and stuff. Fantastic, yeah.
I mean, what the James was he's done well for us in the BE as well, because he's come on board as a bit of a special advisor, corporate social responsibility. But he also, you know, the people panels, he's a good supporter of. We launched a campaign to get kids involved, the Safe Road campaign, which if I had a poster I would pick it up and show you, but I don't have one at hand. You know, and James got one of he made some people panels to go on the side of the trucks as well. So we're looking to get, you know, the members to get some of those fitted to the trucks as well and run that campaign, you know, throughout the year. And, you know, just have a little bit of recognition. There's some good prizes, get the kids involved, some good prizes for schools, you know. TVS, McPhee Mixers of supplying prizes. We've got Blue Rinse Mud Tech that, you know, they're going to supply prizes. So we've got a good mix of companies wanting to get involved with us as well. So, you know, I'm really pleased that things are starting to take off with the BE. You know, and the transport committee for me, I think, will be one of the leading lights of the BE.
Absolutely, I'm really excited about the projects as well. What I was going to say, actually, you must send me the link and we'll put it in the show notes. We put the link in for the competition for people to be able to enter, because there's some really good prizes up, and there's a link there. And if you click on the link, then you'll see there's some really nice pictures and stuff. Was it one of your members of your family?
It was me. Yeah, it was me great niece Gracie. Yeah, she designed it and come up with a slogan, you know. So, and this is why James he produced the people's panel. He also came up and he produced a smaller one for Gracie as well, which they've got up in it's not on the wall, but it's in the conservatory, which is the playroom. So, but yeah, it's really involved, and we've got more planned as well. You know, we'd like to do more, but we don't want to run too many campaigns at once as well. So, you know, we're very conscious of trying to get companies to supply prizes as well. You know, can't just keep going cap in hand. On that note, if anybody does want to supply any prizes, you know, we're quite willing to take donations. So I put that in the link as well.
I was going to say, yeah, if anyone's keen on doing their bit for CSR, you know, this is it, isn't it? You know,
the good thing about the Safe Load campaign as well is, you know, it's predominantly aimed at our industry, so it's tippers and mixers. Now that the load security guidance has just been updated as well, it now brings a bit more relevance to it as well. So, you know, if they want to get involved, it's free. I'll give you the link to the BE Active website. It doesn't cost anything to join and get on board and support. So all good stuff.
Yeah, definitely fantastic, mate. Okay, Bill. So we're sort of starting to move towards a close. One of the big questions I had for you, because I know you're a big advocate for improving the industry and doing what you can to help support it. If I give you a magic wand and you could wave it and make a big change in the industry, what is it that you'd make? What's the big change that you'd make if you could make it?
Good question, that, mate. How long have I got?
And it's only one thing as well.
Oh, one thing. Oh, I don't know.
I'll put you on the spot a little bit, so have a little bit of a think. Tell me a bit more. First of all, tell me a bit more then about the Tip Ashore and Mix Ashore courses, which is what our collaboration is that we're going to be sort of running through, and we can start to introduce people to that and have a bit of a think in the background about what your main thing's going to be for changing in the industry. Right. So tell me a bit about those.
Well, Mix Ashore and Tip Ashore, our training's branded, you know, under Ashore, not the deodorant, just Ashore. You know, we want to make sure that people have the right training, so that's why we'll come up with. I didn't come up with it, like it was somebody else had come up with it, but you know, I'll take credit for it. So it was to make sure that
it's good.
So it was to make sure that everybody had the right information, had the right training. So the Mix Ashore obviously is for mixers. We've got the Tip Ashore, which is for tippers. What people don't realise as well is, you know, we've never had any fully accredited training for specific sectors of what we do. So we've got Tip Ashore, Mix Ashore, safety sure, quarry sure. You know, we've got for the quarrying industry. We've got the Sure brand for volumetrics. You know, we're doing a lot with skip loaders at the minute, 4x4 utility vehicles. It's just everything that the industry hasn't really done, you know, so we wanted to come out and cover that. Now, it's in quite a few different formats. One of the big things is we're trying to build a program, so a Mixer Sure program, for instance. We'll have a range, a blended learning structure, so it'll be a bit of e-learning, some the CPC course, which is run by yourselves and Logico, and then it finishes off with a competence assessment. So, you know, it's a full 12-month program, and it's what, you know, instead of just being a 7-hour CPC course where it's gone and done, you know, we want to continue it a bit like a CPD program, you know, but specific to our industry, you know. And I used to deliver the CPC courses. You know, one, I just don't have the time anymore, and two, it's, you know, I'm getting a bit long in the tooth for that as well. So, you know, and it's a hard day for me. You know, I did it for quite a few years, and I was working all week, and then I jumped in the car on a Friday night, and I travelled down to, you know, Cornwall to deliver a course on a Saturday morning, and then I'd have to travel back as well, ready for, you know, and then you had all the paperwork to do, and then you're back to work Monday morning as well. So, you know, it was a right ball ache. But on the flip side of that, I'm not a huge fan of the webinar CPCs, but, you know, they're here to stay. I think e-learning is going to play a big part in CPC in years to come. But the webinar bit for me, a really hard day, and it's just something I wouldn't want to do. You know, you cannot beat classroom-based training, especially when it's specific to one group of drivers. You know, you haven't got questions coming from different sectors, you know, from supermarkets and general haulage and stuff like that. If you got a room full of, you know, hairy horse mixer drivers, and they all do the same job, and they've all had the same problem, and, you know, they've all got stuck on site, or they've all spilt something, or they've left the taps open, it makes for an easier day, and it makes for a good experience. And that's what, you know, that's what it's all about. Nobody likes having a laugh better than me, you know, and I'm there to have a laugh as well. I've got to make it enjoyable. It's a long day to stand there and be bored, you know, be bored shitless. So make it enjoyable, you know, have a bit of interaction and get everybody involved. You know, it does what it's, you know, it does what it's meant to do the best it can.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I've actually been pretty fortunate. Don't tell the team. I hope they're not listening, but we do the online course. We do the online CPC. But actually, we're seeing a real preference to move it back to the classroom, and we've been doing a lot in the classroom as well, which is far more popular. And I've managed to swerve delivering via Zoom on driver CPC. I could not imagine anything worse. So when it's been my turn, I've put my hand up to deliver some training. I try and do as little as possible, because I often need a Saturday to catch up with everything else with the business. You know, we've got a team of people, and I'll often need Saturday just with a bit of peace and quiet, because I still do customer delivery work, I still do meetings, I still do site visits, I still do other types of training. So Saturday, I'm often just catching up anyway. So it's not ideal, but I do like to make sure I do my fair share, so the guys don't feel like I'm sort of swerving it. Not too much anyway, but I'll only be doing it if it's in person. I'll only do it if it's in person, because you got to have the crack. You got to have the crack. It's the only way to do it.
I mean, there's a lot of companies now will only do, you know, are just going down the route of just, you know, wanting to deliver webinar. You know, for me, that's just because they can make more money on it. You know, one of the things I hear is, you know, and I'm sure everybody else does, but is being ripped off. You know, having your pants pulled down. We shouldn't be paying, you know, absolute fortunes for CPC courses. You know, if it's relevant information and it's safety related, you know, should it not be included in what we do? Any other type of health and safety training has to be done within working hours, doesn't it? You know, as drivers, we have to do it on a Saturday or a Sunday, you know, just so we don't miss any time off work. So for me, you know, there's a lot of things that do need to be changed, but one of them is, you know, the cost of it as well. You know, cost is a big issue. I'm not saying undervalue what you bring into it, but don't go to the other extreme of charging an absolute fortune. You know, which does ultimately, get on drivers' nerves. It pisses them off, and it turns them off before they've even sat on the course. I mean, you look at some courses, £200, and any value out of it, I wouldn't say so. But again, just my opinion. I could make things a lot better. And I've thought about the answer to your question.
I thought you might have done. What's the answer then? Go for it. What's the big thing
Ask us again.
Okay, if I gave you a magic wand and you could wave a magic wand and you could change one big thing in the industry, what would it be?
To make the industry recognise mixers and mixer drivers as a specialist role, because I think we've been undervalued for as long as I've been in it. Really, really undervalued. Especially, I sometimes get accused of being, too close to hauliers and owner drivers, which predominantly over the last 30, 40, 50 years has made up the industry. The owner driver model, whether that was one man, one truck, or whether it was one man with 4 or 5 trucks. And I think we've gone back to, at this moment in time, just with everything that's going on, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis and stuff like that. But we've then the money's not there. The money's not there to pay a really good experienced mixer driver, who's, let's be honest, if you can get one, they're worth their weight in gold. You can rely on them. They look after the truck. They can look after the product. They know the ins and outs. They can deal with customers really, really well. And I think we've moved away from that, and there's a lot of people leaving the industry, which is quite scary. If any of them want to come and work for us delivering training and assessments, put a link on for that as well. But there's a lot of really, really good drivers out there. The crack's really good in the plant. It's a really, really good job. Sometimes shit in the winter, whether it's being stuck outside when it's cold and wet. But it's a really, really good job, and I wouldn't say it's an easy job, but the job's just as hard as you want to make it. But I think if you give the driver all the tools to make them understand what should be done and the best way to do it, we can make drivers more safer and more efficient, and it makes the job more enjoyable. So that's what I would change. Hope that answered your question. All right.
I think me reflecting on that, there's not many driver roles in the industry or any industry that really get that specialist. But I think the special types guys, the heavy haulage guys, tend to get that. They've kind of got that peak in their bonnet because it's the sexy part of the business, isn't it? When they're carrying around plant and machinery and that kind of thing, it's kind of the sexy part of the business, and I think they probably get to walk the swagger. But I think, like you say, I think mixers is up there, mate. It's very complex, isn't it? Very complex, and it's not just about the vehicle.
Of course it's not. And the industry themselves, refer to mixers as a specialist bit of equipment. It's not as though apart from demountable, but you can't really, if there's no work on, you can't go elsewhere and pick any other work up. You can't take any other type of product. So it's a specialist role.
You're all in, aren't you? You're all in. You're all in on the one thing. That's it.
Of course it is. So if we get that recognised, that's my legacy done, and I'll be quite happy, and we'll leave it at that. It might get rid of us as well, which will make some people in the industry really, really happy as well.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Well, on that note, mate. I think we're just about there. So, if people listening want to find out a bit more about MinTrain, Mixer Shore, Tipper Shore, if people are listening and they want to get in touch with you, Mark, where's the best place? Is it to find Mark Cowan on LinkedIn?
Yeah. It's social media. With MinTrain's, on every social media platform. We've got a website which is www.min-train.com. There's a lot of information on there. Or through yourselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, absolutely, yeah. Get in touch with me, and I can always put you in touch with Mark if you're part of the industry and you're interested in getting involved with the BAA. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. I think there's lots of good work going to be happening, and I'm excited to take the VC role with that moving forward too. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, and do get in touch and share it with people, and make sure we reach as many people as possible. Thanks for taking part today, Mark. Really appreciate it, mate.
Lovely. Thanks for having us. Enjoyed it. It's like looking in the mirror as well, Pete.
I really hope you loved today's episode, and if you did, please make sure you subscribe and listen out for future episodes too. Please do share it across your social media channels. We hope to reach more and help more people. If you want to find out more about me, my name's Pete Rushmer. You'll find me across any social media channel and my business Flagship Partners, and we're your partners in success across your business. Thank you. See you again soon.